There is a quiet behavior unfolding all around us that most people misunderstand completely. Some individuals don't drift away from humanity in anger, bitterness, or social failure. Instead, they find themselves trusting animals more than people. To the outside world, it looks simple. They prefer animals. But psychologically, this preference is anything but simple. It is not misanthropy. It is not emotional coldness. And it is not social incompetence. It is the result of a nervous system that has learned, through experience, where safety truly exists. Animals do not negotiate affection. They do not weaponize intimacy. They do not promise emotional presence, and then withdraw it without warning. For a psyche that has learned the cost of broken trust, this difference matters deeply. At some point, often without a conscious decision, the emotional system it begins to favor bonds that are predictable, non-transactional, and emotionally clean. Animals offer presence without agenda, connection without manipulation, loyalty without performance. And for someone whose inner world has been shaped by inconsistency, emotional betrayal, or conditional affection, this kind of bond is not trivial. It is regulating. It calms the nervous system. It restores coherence. It allows attachment without vigilance. Something deeper than preference is at work here. A form of emotional intelligence that values stability over stimulation, presence over performance, and loyalty over intensity. Something did not shut down. Something learned. This pattern does not emerge by accident, and it is not random. Long before it becomes visible in adulthood, it is shaped quietly in the earliest stages of emotional development. What we learn about connection in those early years becomes the template the nervous system uses for trust. Ainsworth showed that when care is consistent, emotionally present, and predictable, the child's attachment system relaxes. Trust feels natural. But when care is inconsistent, emotionally unreliable, or subtly betraying, the attachment system adapts. It does not collapse. It becomes vigilant. It learns to scan for safety rather than assume it. For individuals who grew up with emotional inconsistency, affection that arrived over time, the psyche begins to associate human intimacy with uncertainty. The bond feels safe because it is consistent. It feels calming because it is honest. This is not avoidance. It is the attachment system choosing regulation over risk. According to Ainsworth's work, this is adaptation, not pathology. The psyche reorganizes itself around what it has learned, keeps it intact. Trust is not withheld out of bitterness, but protected out of wisdom. What appears to be preference is actually the nervous system honoring its own history. If this resonates with you, take a moment to acknowledge it. The mind, having experienced the unpredictable nature of human connection, now seeks only those relationships where emotional safety and consistency are guaranteed. In a world filled with unpredictable dynamics, where people often mask their true intentions, project their unresolved issues, or exhibit behaviors that betray trust, the emotional system becomes highly discerning. The need for constant social interaction fades, replaced by the preference for relationships that offer clarity, reliability, and emotional peace. There is no room for hidden agendas, manipulation, or instability. It is the mind prioritizing mental well-being, and choosing not to invest in relationships that may drain or destabilize. It's a form of self-protection that values emotional integrity over the superficiality of transient connections. The withdrawal is not an absence of connection, but the creation of space for a more meaningful, secure form of attachment. It is a way of safeguarding one's energy and preserving the emotional boundaries that ensure psychological health. This emotional masking makes it difficult to truly understand the other person's intentions, leaving space for misinterpretation and uncertainty. These expectations can create pressure, as one person might feel they are failing in ways they don't even realize, or are constantly trying to live up to an ideal that was never made explicit. The result is a feeling of constantly performing, trying to please or meet the needs of others, without fully understanding what is truly being asked of them. Emotional manipulation is another common, albeit more insidious, feature in human interactions. This can take many forms, from guilt-tripping to passive-aggressive behavior, and it distorts the true nature of the connection. Instead of relationships being about mutual support, love, and understanding, they often become about control, power, dynamics, and influence. The subtlety of these manipulations can make it difficult to recognize, but over time, they erode the foundation of trust and connection. This is not withdrawal born from fear, but selectivity born from experience. These individuals have not lost the capacity to bond. They have refined it. This pattern can be called rare emotional loyalty. It is not detachment, avoidance, or emotional coldness. It is a highly selective form of attachment that emerges when the emotional system learns, through lived experience, that intensity does not equal safety, and closeness does not guarantee commitment. Emotional fireworks lose their appeal when they are followed by disappointment, withdrawal, or betrayal. The quiet proof that someone will remain when nothing is being demanded. In this structure, loyalty is not given quickly. It is protected, tested over time, and offered only where it can rest without vigilance. The emotional system becomes less reactive, but more precise. Fewer bonds are formed, but those that exist are deep, steady, and enduring. This is not emotional poverty. It is emotional refinement. It represents an attachment system that has learned how to love without losing itself, and how to remain open without becoming unprotected. It becomes something far more precise, a search for secure attachment. For a psyche shaped by emotional unpredictability, protecting the nervous system becomes essential. Constant exposure to unstable bonds keeps the body in a low-grade state of defense. Choosing relationships that calm rather than stimulate is not withdrawal from life, but an act of Emotional coherence emerges when external relationships match internal capacity. That alignment restores dignity to connection. Most importantly, this choice is not a rejection of people. It is not born from resentment, bitterness, or fear. It is loyalty directed inward. The psyche has learned what it can safely hold and where it can remain intact. Choosing animals is choosing relationships that do not fracture emotional integrity. It is fidelity to one's own limits, rhythms, and needs. Phrases like "you need to trust people more" or "you isolate yourself too much" sound reasonable on the surface, but they ignore the lived reality of an emotionally discerning psyche. They assume that connection is always healthy, that proximity is inherently healing, and that solitude is something to be fixed. For those who have learned the cost of insecure attachment, this assumption is not only inaccurate, it is harmful. Forcing bonds where safety is absent does not build character or emotional strength. It erodes regulation. It teaches the nervous system to override its own warning signals in the name of social approval. This kind of self-betrayal is far more destructive than being alone. Releasing guilt is essential. There is nothing noble about enduring relationships that destabilize you. There is wisdom in choosing environments that do not require you to be on guard. Trust cannot be forced, and connection cannot be demanded without consequence. This pattern does not represent emotional stagnation or withdrawal from growth. It reflects an advanced stage of emotional maturation. It begins to organize itself around coherence. Fewer bonds are not a loss. They are the natural result of higher standards for emotional safety and truth. The psyche no longer seeks relationships to regulate itself externally. The emotional system becomes intolerant of fragmentation and increasingly drawn to what feels whole. Fewer connections are maintained, but those that remain carry weight, safety, and longevity. This is what emotional maturity looks like from the inside. It is not louder, more expressive, or more social. It is quieter, clearer, and more aligned. The psyche chooses what preserves integration and lets go of what disrupts it. In this state, emotional loyalty becomes precise, and connection becomes something that strengthens rather than consumes. The deeper truth is simple, but often overlooked. Those who prefer animals have not given up on love. Their capacity for attachment has not disappeared, and their emotional world has not gone cold. What has changed is discernment. Through experience, the psyche has learned that loyalty is a finite resource, and when it is given carelessly, it costs stability, trust, and inner coherence. This shift is not a rejection of connection, but a refinement of it. Emotional energy is no longer scattered across relationships that drain or destabilize. It is protected, conserved, and offered only where it can remain intact. Love does not vanish in this process. It becomes precise. It moves away from intensity, drama, and conditional closeness and toward consistency, presence, and safety. The bond did not die. It matured. What once flowed freely now flows deliberately. Trust is no longer automatic. But when it is given, it is deep, steady, and enduring. This is not emotional loss. It is emotional economy. Loyalty is no longer spent on uncertainty. So when someone chooses animals, silence, or solitude over unstable human bonds, it is not because they stopped caring. It is because they learned how to care without betraying themselves. Low-minded simply became rare. If you recognize yourself here, this message is for you. If you feel calmer, safer, and more at ease around animals than around people, it is not because you lack warmth or emotional depth. It is because your system learned, often earlier than it should have, the price of false closeness. You discovered that proximity does not always bring care, and that intimacy can exist alongside inconsistency, manipulation, or quiet withdrawal. Your body remembers what your mind may still question. It knows the difference between presence and performance, between loyalty and attachment that comes with conditions. Feeling safer with animals is not a sign of emotional shutdown. It is a sign that your nervous system knows where it can relax without guarding itself, where it does not have to monitor tone, intention, or shifting boundaries. You did not stop wanting connection. You stopped offering it where it cost you peace. What others may interpret as distance is, in reality, self-respect shaped by experience. You learn to listen to the signals most people ignore. You learn that emotional safety matters more than appearances. If this resonates, allow yourself to trust that wisdom. You are not avoiding love. You are protecting it. And the fact that you still see connection just in places that do not wound you is proof that your heart did not close. It adapted. You are allowed to listen to what your body has been telling you all along. You do not need to force yourself into relationships that feel heavy, tense, or subtly unsafe just to meet social expectations. Emotional connection is not something that can be willed into existence through obligation or guilt. If your body tightens, withdraws, or grows tired in certain bonds, that response is not weakness. It is information. Your emotional system has its own intelligence. It recognizes patterns long before the mind can rationalize them. It knows where it can remain open without bracing for disappointment, and where connection requires constant support. Ignoring these signals does not build resilience. It erodes trust with yourself. You are not required to override your instincts, to prove openness or maturity. Permission means releasing the belief that something is wrong with you for needing safety. It means honoring the reality that trust grows where consistency exists, not where pressure is applied. You are not obligated to invest emotionally in environments that ask you to shrink, perform, or remain on guard. Choosing fewer, safer connections is not rejection of others. It is respect for your own limits. Your system knows where it can rest. Allow it to guide you. Emotional loyalty given in the right place does not drain you. It strengthens you. This space is not designed for those seeking quick reassurance or shallow connection. It exists for people who have lived through emotional inconsistency and emerge with discernment rather than bitterness. For those who no longer confuse intensity with intimacy or proximity with loyalty. For those who learned, sometimes painfully, how to protect what is essential without closing their hearts. If you have transformed attachment wounds into conscious loyalty, you belong here. This channel is a place for reflection, not noise. For depth, not performance. Each video is an invitation to understand your inner structure more clearly, to name experiences that were never explained, and to replace self-doubt with psychological clarity. If this message resonated with you, support this work by subscribing and staying connected. Share your reflections in the comments if you feel called to, and return when you need language for what you already sense but cannot yet articulate. This is a space for those who choose coherence over conformity and truth over surface belonging.